Good afternoon, folks. How are we doing? I hope we're well. As always, it seems, alas, we are starting with an apology on this one. Yeah, the schedule's just gone a little bit bananas this week, mostly due to day job commitments and stuff like that. So this should have been yesterday. Calendar didn't permit it, and then I was expecting it to be at a more lunchtimey slot, given that this is a geeky lunch chat. But then I had a meeting dropped in me, so I thought rather than cancelling or delaying again, which I feared would mean, that I just wasn't going to do anything this week. I decided, well, no, we'll do this a little bit earlier. Let's not have spamming in the chat. So we'll just get rid of that, please. Goodbye. Right, there we go. But thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it, and it is lovely, as always, to see familiar names and faces here, so thank you so much. Where to begin? Oh, good grief. Let's start off with the shameless plug. Should we do that first? We'll get that out of the way. I'm not saying we won't return to the shameless plug, but the shameless plug is important, so let's do that. So, first of all, we will do the shameless plug. If you somehow do not know, I am in the pre-launch phase of my very first Kickstarter. It is for Little But Fierce. What is Little But Fierce, you may ask? Little But Fierce is a reimagining of D&D 5th edition, specifically the Creative Commons version of 5th edition, rewritten to make it more accessible for kids. Specifically, it is playable by kids as young as 6, but the fact is I have designed it so that it will be generally more accessible and more streamlined and simplified for anyone. You know, so whether that's kids as young as 6, whether that's teenagers, whether that's people with additional needs, whether that's just people who just think that, you know, D&D and other big chunky games are just a bit too big and chunky. So got a digital version that's been out there for 3 years now, and finally I'm doing the complete illustrated physical hardback version. And it is going to be crowdfunding in March 2026, but it is up on pre-launch already, so we're going to shamelessly stick the link in the chat. And you can have a look at all the goodness. You can see the lovely artwork. Lovely is not a strong enough word. The beautiful, the gorgeous artwork by my artist Katerina, which I absolutely frickin' love. Please gaze at its magnificence. You can see that. You can see some previews of hero sheets. You get intros to the team. You get to see some preview pages. Lots and lots of good stuff on there, and some testimonials as well. Please take a look. And ideally, I think if you're watching this right now, especially if you're watching this live, you probably know about Little But Fierce already. But what I would ask you to do is please share the link. Please share the link with people I don't already follow or don't already follow me, because actually that's the big difficult thing at this stage. It's expanding that bubble. It's expanding that audience so that people who have not already seen this find out about it, and it starts to spread, because social media algorithms are really, really hard, especially because so many of them are going down the toilet or require money in order to get anywhere. So please consider following if you don't already follow, or share it with someone who might. We're on 96 followers already. It would be amazing if we could get that up to 100 followers. I mean, it'd be amazing if we get up to 100 followers today, but it would be really great if we could, hit that milestone and keep going from strength to strength. So please, if you've not checked it out already, or if you've been meaning to go, oh, I know someone who'd really like that, because maybe they're a parent, maybe they're a teacher, they're a librarian, they run, they're a scout leader or something like that, and you think it'd be really great to introduce kids into this wonderful hobby, please take a look at that and pass it on. I would really, really appreciate that. So thank you. Right, shameless plug is over for now. So let me just sort my screen out a little bit so that I am not breaking my neck. Because, I got a bit of a sore back because I'm old now. That's what happens. You get old and then your back just hurts at all times. What else do we want to talk about? Well, Housekeeping-y stuff. We had Halloween, which was a lot of fun. I got to take my 5-year-old, nearly 6-year-old, out trick-or-treating, which was fun. I have not posted any images of that because I keep family stuff very private. But what I will say is she was dressed up as the most adorable Eevee ever, and was given an awful lot of sweets for generally being adorable. But yeah, that was an awful lot of fun. On the note of EVs and my daughter's relatively new obsession with Pokemon that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Not that that's a problem. I rather like Pokemon, and I love the fact that she's enjoying it. I currently have a scheme underway because, right, I've talked a little bit about Pokemon before. In fact, I did a stream all about my experience with Pokemon and playing the games back in the day on the Game Boy and playing a bit of Pokemon cards and all of that good stuff. So my daughter really likes Pokemon cards. She's not, at this stage, she's just, wanting to see more Pokemon. She's enjoying building decks. She's enjoying playing decks. Not too fussed on the rarity of stuff, really. I mean, shiny stuff's shiny. She's a bit kind of magpie-ish in that sense. But yeah, she likes Pokemon cards. And the problem is, if you're not aware of this, and I certainly wasn't, Pokemon cards are really hard to get nowadays. They're still making them, but they are ridiculously hard to get hold of. Prices are high, and literally shops are selling out of them every single day. Like, I went into Waterstones the other day, and they literally had a sign up that said, "Sorry, we have sold out of Pokemon cards." I went in somewhere else, and they said, they're doing like 3 packs per person. Amazon are doing a thing where it's not buy it now or out of stock. You need to request an invite to buy Pokemon cards, because clearly people are just buying them en masse. It is kind of bizarre, and I've not seen this before, and I don't know what's really driving it, to be honest, the fact that it is so kind of ridiculous right now. But on this note, I have a scheme, and because my daughter is 5, she will not be watching this, so I will reveal said scheme. She likes opening Pokemon cards. She wants new cards, or cards that she does not have already. So what I have done is this. I've made a small investment. I have gone on eBay, and I've bought a bulk load of Pokemon commons and uncommons, a set of 1,000. It cost me about 40 quid. 1,000 commons and uncommons. I think there's a couple of rares, a couple of shinies in there as well. I've also got some bulk energy cards as well. And what I have purchased is I have bought some resealable plastic wallets, about the right sort of size. I've also bought some Pokemon stickers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make her booster packs. So I am going to take all these commons and uncommons, I'm going to sort them into 10, 11 cards. I'm going to seal them up in packs. I'm going to stick Pokemon stickers on them, and we're going to do some little homemade Pokemon booster packs. So she gets that fun of, opening packs, getting new cards, without it costing an absolute fortune. And it means that actually, relatively speaking, it's quite cheap to do so, which means it makes like the perfect little reward of, she's done something really awesome at school, or she's, done something really nice for one of her friends, or she's tidied up around the house. That would be a lovely thing if that happened. And she can get like a little kind of homemade Pokemon booster pack, for a relatively, low price in the grand scheme. I reckon I should be able to get about like 100 packs out of what I've got, which, 40 quid plus that. So let's say about 50 quid. 50 quid divided by 100 packs. That's not bad, is it? So we shall see how this goes. I will undoubtedly, when I actually do the grand construction of these, there will be some shameless Instagram and TikTok content. But I think this will work. I'm not going to convince her that these are genuine Pokemon packs, but I think she will enjoy it. But we shall see. I shall report back in. So what else? So I meant to do this stream last week, and then because of October half term, it all kind of went out the window. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was MCM Comic Con. So I've seemed to have fallen into a habit of going to every single MCM Comic Con. I never intend to do it, because in the grand scheme of things, and I've said this many, many times, MCM is not my favourite Comic Con. I really like Dragon Meet. I really like Tabletop Scotland. MCM is quite good for networking. It's quite good for seeing big names. It's quite good for getting like autographs and stuff like that. But it's not my favorite one from a kind of indie creator sort of perspective. And yet I seem to keep going back. I did it a little bit more low key this time in that I only went for the Friday this time rather than doing the whole weekend or even 2 days of this one. So, like I said, relatively low key, but it was really nice to do various bits and bobs. I kept it to a very simple kind of agenda as well, as in I didn't have loads and loads of panels I wanted to go to because that's always quite stressful when it's like, oh no, I want to queue up here, but it's going to take that long, and then I need to get in the queue for that thing, and you just spend the whole day in queues, which kind of sucks. So I did keep it relatively low-key. I unexpectedly bumped into the wonderful ladies of Lucky Fox Studios, and let's chuck a quick link in here. If you do not know Lucky Fox Studio, link go in the chat. They are a wonderful couple, Bex and Steph. They live other side of London to me. UK-based creators, artists, digital artists, musician, and they just produce wonderful, wonderful work. And if you go on their website, if you follow them on socials, you'll find out more about about 3 years ago, they decided that they wanted to make this kind of take the creative plunge on this one. And they've just been going from strength to strength. So follow them on the socials, look at all the wonderful stuff they're doing. And if you're at any conventions, especially things like Dragon Meet, please pop by and see them and buy some of their stuff because they are genuinely lovely people. And this sounds a little bit soppy, what I'm about to say here, but I think it's important. As an adult-shaped person, you don't make a lot of friends. That's kind of a slightly sad and sorrowful thing to say, but as an adult, it is very rare that you make new friends. You meet work colleagues, and when you've got like kind of digital communities and stuff like that, or hobbies that you do, you end up, meeting some people. But actually, compared to like the earlier years of your life, you don't make that many friends. And I'm really pleased to say that, I almost stumbled upon. We were introduced by mutual acquaintance, and Bex and Steph are wonderful people, looking forward to seeing them again soon for more shenanigans. Shenanigans are fun, and shenanigans. Alrighty. What else with that MCM? Well, I'm going to do the shameless thing again. This is not a shameless plug. This is just a cool little project. So if you've not seen this before, when I went to my first MCM, which was in 2018, I decided to get my 5th edition Player's Handbook signed by a couple of artists with that. I got it signed by Kit Buss and Tess Fowler. And since then, I have been having this added to. So anytime I get autographs, I get this signed. And now it looks like this. Look at the gorgeousness of this. So we have various artists, we've got Dungeon Masters, we've got a lot of the Baldur's Gate 3 cast, and the additions from MCM were I got Mark/Mara Humes signed this one, and the two ones which I had to queue up for and I had to pay for, but I'm so glad I did, is here we have Mark Meir and Jennifer Hale, Commander's Shepherd both, who were an absolute delight. They really were. I mean, both of which phenomenal voice actors. Their work on Mass Effect alone is amazing, but they've done so many other things. Mark is also a D&D player, dungeon master, role player. Jennifer Hale is just an absolute legend. I mean, for me, she is Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat from the 90s animated Spider-Man series. So both of them absolutely wonderful people, and I'm so glad that I've got their signatures in my Player's Handbook now, which is very, very cool. And yeah, last thing, more Natural Six. Seriously, folks, if you are looking to dabble in actual play series, so D&D shows, live D&D shows and stuff like that, check out Natural Six. Natural Six are just wonderful, and good grief, I cannot for the life of me get their it's not naturalsix.com. That is ridiculous. What is the homepage for Natural Six? That's ridiculous. But seriously, Google Natural Six. Have I got it here? Have I got it here? Yeah, I have. Natural Six are an absolutely wonderful actual play show and just genuinely lovely people. They did a live show. They did some signings. They did some merch selling at MCM. The live show was absolute chaos. It was glorious. There was dirty dancing music playing. There were technical issues that led to a lot of shouting across a very filled auditorium. It was absolutely ridiculous, but wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So seriously, if you are looking, if the idea of watching a Critical Role or something where there's just so much content and each episode is so long, if that's always a little bit daunting, check out Natural Six. Episodes are much shorter. Really great vibe. Incredibly foolish. Yeah, check them out. Wonderful, wonderful people all. So yeah, do that. And the last thing I'll say on this kind of convention note is, good grief, I'm looking forward to Dragon Meet. Dragon Meet I've talked about before. Dragon Meet is it's more focused on tabletop RPGs and board games and stuff like that, and it's got more of an indie feel. There's less of the big commercial entities. Like the biggest names you'll see there are people like Modifius and stuff like that, who are still, on a Wizards of the Coast scale, they are still a much, much smaller entity and stuff like that. But it's always a really great convention, Dragon Meet, and this is the first year where they are going to be at the new venue, which is the Excel Center where MCM is. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing there, because that's a big old venue to fill. But Dragon Meet's always absolutely packed. So if you are vaguely around London or want to travel vaguely to London, 29th of November, London Excel Centre, check out Dragon Meet. If you've never been to a convention and you are a board gamey tabletop sort of person, check it out. I think you'll have a really, really good time. I'm not speaking or anything at this one. I've done panels the last two ones. I'm not on this one. I've just been a bit disorganized, frankly, between all the Little But Fierce Kickstarter stuff and life stuff. I haven't managed to get my act together to do a panel for this one, but yeah, it's a really great convention. So do check it out. And I'm very excited to see what they're going to be doing there. I'm going to take a swig of drink and we'll go on to the topic. So, on the notes of tabletop conventions, something happened in the last couple of days, which has got... If you're in these circles, you will have noticed it, and it will have got some press. It was also reported by Rascal News. And let's talk a little bit about this one. So, I'll name the convention on this one, and that's probably as far as I'll go on the name on this one. So, UKGE, UK Games Expo, which I've never been to, but I've heard... Until this point, I've heard only good things about. Did a paid promotion, is my understanding, which involved them retweeting or doing some collaborative posts on Instagram and the like for a Kickstarter. And this Kickstarter, I'm not going to name it, I'm not going to link to it, but if you want to find it, you can find it, uses generative AI as part of its artwork process. Now, right, various caveats at the top of this one. First thing on this one, in terms of a bit of context on this one. So, the second this was spotted, there was a huge outcry from various people, myself included. And I'll talk about why in just a second. What I will say is, at the time of recording, to the best of my knowledge, UKG have been entirely silent on any of the criticism. They've not said anything in response to any of the comments. The people who made the Kickstarter have been, let's say, very defensive. A lot of it, I would say, was... it went from them trying to defend their point and their decisions to some quite, I would say, quite petty and quite insulting comments made in response to quite reasonable criticism. Now, I'm saying that as someone who was involved in posting comments. I didn't say anything bad, and I've not seen anyone post anything bad there. It's not like just mobbing on and slating people. To quite legitimate, in my opinion, criticism, or at least pointing out the issues with generative AI. UKG have been signed at this time. Now, in continuing the caveats at the start of all this, my background, my kind of education, partly in computer science. My degree is in mathematics and computer science. I know an awful lot of people in the in kind of software engineering, and discussions involving AI and appropriate use of AI are an important part of my day job. But I am not an expert. I am reasonably well informed. I have a pretty good background, and I understand a lot of what's going on here, but I would not consider myself an expert. But I think I can speak in a relatively informed manner about a load of this, but still not an expert. There will be people who know more than me. I know for a fact there are people who know more than me on this. Also, I'm not a lawyer, okay? So nothing I'm going to say here is legal advice, all right? But we need to be careful when we're talking about AI, because AI is clearly a buzz thing right now, and it refers to an awful lot of things. Like, AI in various forms has been around for a very, very long time. Look, if you've ever played, if you played a chess game on your Sega Master System back in the 90s, that had AI. It had a computer opponent. That is artificial intelligence, in a sense. But what we're talking about right now, in terms of latest developments in AI, generally falls into two categories. And even then, let's try and keep them relatively separate in what we're talking about here. When you hear discussions of AI nowadays, you are generally talking about either analytical AI agents for data processing or generative AI. Generative AI being something that produces something, that generates something. And it is important that we distinguish between those two things, because while they're kind of built on the same technology, they are used for different things, and they have different implications, certainly from an ethical consideration standpoint. And I will be the first person to say on this one, and I have no qualms in saying it, that I think AI is an incredibly powerful tool, is an incredibly powerful development, and I think there are appropriate uses for it. Analytical AI agents are incredibly useful. We are now seeing them in medicine, for example. AI agents are better at identifying the early signs, for example, of cancer than humans are. You give a series of x-rays, or even like one x-ray, to certain AI agents, and they can be very good at spotting these early signs. They're very good at spotting patterns in masses of data. So we are seeing huge developments in terms of, like I said, early warning signs of things, or spotting patterns that humans generally are not very good at doing. We are not human computers. Our brains are very clever, but we're not good at spotting certain types of patterns. So analytical AI is incredibly powerful. We've got the example there in stethoscopes detecting murmurs. Also, hi. Thank you, Nanotechnician HQ. No, absolutely. AI has enormous potential, and I think genuinely, without me trying to sound like an AI fanboy here, because I would definitely not categorize myself as that, there are extremely powerful implications that can definitely make people's lives better. Yeah, especially when we're talking about medicine and stuff like that. So analytical AI, absolutely. I'm kind of all for that, in moderation. Generative AI is another kettle of fish. Now, both those types of tools have an environmental impact. The algorithms, the large language processing that happens here requires a phenomenal amount of energy. And running AI tools uses a lot of energy, to the degree that we are having huge, essentially, AI warehouses developed. And I can't remember the stat, but it's something like, and apologies if I'm a little bit off on this, it's something like you use up a bottle of water every time you do certain generative AI prompts and stuff like that. So AI needs to be used sensibly, maturely, responsibly. The example I gave when I was doing a talk for my day job recently is that, there is an environmental consequence to using AI tools, so we should use them responsibly. In the same way that, using electricity has environmental consequences. Now, I'm not saying no one use electricity, because that would be ridiculous, but we do switch off light bulbs when we walk out of a room. So we know how and when to be sensible in our use of electricity. And similarly, we want to be sensible in our use of AI. Using, for example, people who use ChatGPT effectively as Google to ask questions, and find information. It is not designed for that. And you'll actually get incorrect information from it. But it uses a huge amount of energy. And spurious use of AI, in particular, is a concern because it will have unquestionably an environmental impact, especially on a large scale. So that's something we need to consider. But let's think about the ethical considerations. Again, I am not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. But at quite a simplistic level on this one. AI tools like large language models that are developed for generative AI purposes. And I'm not going to name any names on this one. One, I don't want to be frickin' sued. And secondly, everything's changing so fast that what I say here could be out of date within like 5 minutes. But in general, AI generative tools are developed using training data. They're using a lot of content to refine the algorithm in doing what it is doing. And in the development of those tools, a huge amount of training data will be used, depending on what it is meant to be doing. Generally, generalization here, nowadays, a lot of that for large-scale, publicly available tools is scraped from the internet, as in they essentially, simplistic version here, they're essentially doing, right, I'm going to download the entire of Google, I'm going to download all the books, all the images, all the music, all the videos, and I'm going to feed that in to train my models. Now, the problem with doing that, obviously, is that while there is a lot of public domain content out there, public domain books, public domain songs, public domain images, Creative Commons stuff, there is a huge amount out there. There's an awful lot that is in trademark, that's in copyright. So the second you train something on that, if that is potentially, and there's a difference here between legally and ethically, because there isn't precedent yet, that is potentially a copyright breach every time that happens, and we've seen that, there are lawsuits in progress right now. For example, Disney, Disney did a thing with a popular generative AI tool, and got it to very quickly, with some very simple prompts, got it to generate images from its intellectual property, images from Avengers films, from Frozen and stuff like that. So clearly it has enough data about those IPs in it, scraped copyright data, that it can regenerate this stuff fairly accurately, suggesting it's not just little bits and pieces, there's a whole bunch of trademark stuff in there. So whenever they generate text, images, music, etc., they're drawing on that training data to generate content. So essentially every time you do a generative AI thing, it is potentially, effectively, maybe not legally, precedent's not there yet, but ethically, it is essentially doing a new copyright breach every time it does that. Now, you can try and use these more ethically, and there are ways you can do that. There are open source tools that you can kind of train on your own content. For example, what you could do, let's say I wanted to, and I'll choose an example that's relatively close to things that I know that are actually happening out there. Let's say I wanted to produce a maths textbook that had 1,000 equation questions in, or 1,000 trigonometry questions in it, right? I could, for example, write 100 questions or 1,000 questions. I could write a number of questions and then train my algorithm, my tool, based on purely my work, and get it to generate more stuff in that style. That is a far more ethical use of it. So on one level, it is only working with stuff that is mine, that is my intellectual property. So I know within the confines of that part of it, I'm not breaching any copyright, because it's locally only working using the stuff that I made. But there is a wider question, which was the development of the tool. Because the tool itself was probably developed with a much wider skill set in order to be able to do the things it's doing, and that was then probably trained on a wider data set, which probably, possibly, potentially, but in all likelihood did include copyright information. So while it is closer to being a more ethical / legal way of using it, and it is unquestionably better, the tool was probably developed and trained still using copyright materials. There are probably exceptions out there, but I don't know what they are. Okay? And that kind of harkens to what you said, Nano, here. I can make my own LLL using NVIDIA's Chat RTX, using my own data set, my work. Absolutely, yeah. So you can get it to, you can train it locally on your own stuff to generate more stuff in that style. There's then the question of when the original thing was developed, what was that trained on? But that is a second part of that question. So there are ways to be better using those things. But a lot of these tools, if not all, don't know. Again, I'm not saying a definite here, were probably developed using copyright materials originally, even if they're only now being used on a local data set. So, things to consider. There's no legal precedent yet. There's a lot of cases going on right now, some very big cases involving very big operators like Disney and Warner Brothers and stuff like that. A lot of IP lawyers suspect there's breach of copyright involved. There's not a precedent yet. There is not. So what about the creative industries? Well, this is where this arose from. Okay, well, me talking about it today, this is where it arose from, because obviously there is this Kickstarter that uses generative AI, and there are plenty of Kickstarters out there that use generative AI. Now, a lot of big conventions are banning it. I know there was a sign up at MCM that said, nope. Yeah, we don't want AI slop here. Yeah, we're seeing that more and more. And the general consensus, again, speaking very generally here, is that generative AI stuff should not be in the creative industries. Why? Well, essentially because the creative industries are about art, right? I mean, fundamentally, there's kind of the core thing about it is you're producing a piece of art, whether that's writing, whether that's, a painting, whether that's music, whether it's, movie. You're creating artwork, and my train of thought slightly derailed here. You're creating artwork, so really the act of creation should come from a human place, not an artificial place. Now, tools are tools, that's fine, but there is a difference. There is clearly a fundamental difference between me, for example, using Art Studio Pro to do a bit of digital editing of an image versus getting Photoshop to generate me an image based on someone else's stuff. That is a fundamental difference. And anyone who claims it's the same thing, or, oh yeah, people said we shouldn't do that and now everyone does, there is a difference here, and let's be sensible. And it is not just the same as learning. I could watch Bob Ross videos and I could learn how to paint. That's fine. I'm being taught how to do something, even if that's not directly from the person. But it's very different that from saying, well, take all of Bob Ross's artwork, chuck it into a machine, and then make me some sort of bastardized hybrid of Bob Ross work. It is a different question. So that's kind of almost an ethical, a sort of purist standpoint of why you wouldn't want it there. You also do end up with an awful lot of slop out there. Like if you are, for example, Kindle Marketplace, there is an increasing amount of just generated stuff. People are literally, okay, I'll avoid the word literally on this one, but people are effectively getting ChatGPT or something similar to generate them whole books, and then a whole cover, and slapping it up and getting someone to pay for it. And people only realizing later on that it's a bunch of crap. Which is, it's a problem, and we know the fact that, just on social media, the fact you get so many generative AI images and videos that it's difficult to know what's real anymore. I mean, that is a whole thing. But in creative industries, you really want your art created by artists, not by systems. And a response you hear an awful lot related to this is that people can't afford it. They've written a book, they've written something, and they want a cover, and they can't afford it. Now, I get that. I 100% understand where they're coming from. Art is expensive. But art is expensive because if you hire an artist to do something, you are basically asking them to take their years of work and training and practice and honing their skill, and then the hours of work in developing the thing and working with you and to produce the thing. You know, it is a huge amount of work that you are asking for. And rightly so, because, you know, these guys have got to live. You know, artists have got to, you know, feed themselves, you know, and should be paid appropriately for their work. But what happens if you're an indie creator, you know, on a shoestring budget who can't afford a cover? Well, I get that. I absolutely get it. I'm saying that as someone who has produced an awful lot of like D&D and other tabletop RPG materials. You know, there are certainly times there where I've gone, look, I can't commission an artist to do something. You know, I'm really proud that I can say for Little But Fierce that I'm in a situation where I was able to do enough up front with a business loan, you know, to commission artwork, and the Kickstarter funds will do the rest of the artwork, you know. But not everyone is in the position where they can do that. You know, just starting out, it's very tough to do. But there are plenty of other avenues. Public domain artwork, Creative Commons artwork, stock images. There is an awful lot out there. You know, if you just go on websites like Pexels and Unsplash, you will find loads of public domain artwork that you can use for covers and the like. If you go on, a lot of the big museums have got all the paintings and all the stuff that is in their galleries, digital copies on their website as Creative Commons, so you can use them. And I've done that. That sounds, yeah, I've heard people go, oh, you can't actually use this stuff. Of course you can. Absolutely, of course you can. In fact, I will pull up I'll pull up an example of something I did with this. So let me just find it. So what's the best example? If I use As Time Goes By, which was a little D&D supplement I made some years ago. Not that many years ago. Probably about 4 years ago or something like that. And now my Mac chooses to be slow. Of course it does. So let's whack this up on the big screen, and I'll show you what I did on this. So right, so this has got a piece of cover. This is a stock image that was available. I can't remember if it was Unsplash that I used for this, but I can't remember. But it is a stock image that is available to use. This kind of pocket watch image. It looks freaking lovely. Absolutely fine using that. Yeah, that was a good start on this one. And then when I go into some of the interior art, and I don't have much, I've got this pile of skulls here. I've got this this globe here. I've got an hourglass here. All three of those are taken from Creative Commons museum artwork. They're all taken from paintings that are up somewhere. In this case, Pyramid of Skulls by Paul Cézanne. So that is taken from a big painting, and I just cut round the outside and popped it in. It's publicly available. It's absolutely fine to use from an ethical standpoint, and it absolutely does the job without me having to go near generative AI. So, yeah, it's a little bit more work, but creating is a lot of work. You know, yes, it's incredibly easy to type into ChatGPT, give me an image of a pile of skulls. But it's easy to walk into a shop and steal a Mars bar. It doesn't mean we should bloody do it, you know? So there are plenty of ways that you can do this legally and ethically and cheaply without having to go near generative AI tools. Especially if you're saying that you've done all the work in writing the thing you want to write. Now you want the artwork. Well, just go the extra mile on that one. You know? Yeah, if you're willing to do the writing, source the artwork. And there are free ways to do it. Again, websites like Pexels, like Unsplash. Let me grab the link as well. I just save all these down, so I've got them in a big old folder of stuff. So if I go into my bookmarks, I've got a folder called Free Artwork. So Pexels, Unsplash, Pixabay, Raw Pixel. This is a good one as well. That's got loads and loads of paintings and stuff like that that you can use. Gratisography. Loads and loads of stuff there. Now, sometimes when you use these sites, you just stick a filter on and say, I don't want any AI stuff in there. Because some people do upload AI crap into... people do upload AI crap into these systems, but you can filter it out. Equally, this is one for MoMA. So this is the museum. I forget what it stands for. I should know, but I've forgotten. There's loads and loads of public domain artwork you can use out there. When I did Hard Boiled Adventures, which was my film noir D&D books, I took pulp artwork that was at Museum of Modern Art. Thank you very much. Nano, you're absolutely on fire today. Not literally. If you are literally on fire, please see the fire department and then a doctor immediately. But I really appreciate that. Thank you. When I did Hard-Boiled Adventures, I took pulp artwork that was out of copyright, so legally it's in the public domain, and then edited that to make them look like dragons and orcs and stuff like that. There are plenty of ways you can do this, and do this ethically and legally. And in an environmentally friendly way. One of the defenses that the Kickstarter that I'm not going to mention, not going to link to, said, everyone's using generative AI. We're just being honest and admitting that we're using it. Not everyone is using generative AI. I would say there are too many people who are, but I would say that anyone using it is too many. But to say that everyone's doing it isn't true, and it just requires education, and that is the problem. That some of these tools are so easy to use that people don't realize. I think some of the reason that some people use ChatGPT like Google is they almost don't realize it's not Google. They don't know about the ethical considerations. They don't know about the environmental considerations. So it's on us who are maybe slightly more informed, or maybe done the research, to try and wave that banner and steer people towards the right way of doing things. If my daughter leaves the light on when she leaves the room, I ask her to turn it off and I tell her why. Equally, if you know people who are spuriously using AI in general, and specifically using generative AI for creative endeavors, please try and educate them. And do that in a mature way. There will be some people who will push back on it. There you go. Thank you, Nano. Everyone's using coal, so coal is fine. It is not. So we can help steer people who are generally ignorant about this stuff. And I'm not using ignorant as like a pejorative or something, who genuinely don't know. I know, don't worry. People who genuinely don't know, we can steer them towards the right way of doing this, we can help people be better, because this all has a consequence. I want to make sure that my artist friends are getting hired for work. I want to make sure that I'm producing stuff that I am morally, legally, environmentally happy with. I don't want other people's stuff stolen. And we can be better, so that's a whistle-stop tour of this topic. It is a big old topic, and way more than I can cover in half an hour, 45 minutes on a lunchtime chat. And again, I will apologize if I've got any of the finer details of this wrong. I like to think I'm relatively well informed, but I am not perfect. I am not an expert. So hopefully that is of use. We can collectively be better. And if I'm preaching to the crowd, it's like, I know this, just help nudge people in the right direction. We, again, took a long time, but most people realize that cigarettes are bad for you. It took a while, and we realized that coal's bad for the planet. It took a while, we know to turn off light bulbs. It might take a while. We can steer people towards ethical use of AI, because, again, said it at the start here, AI is an incredibly powerful tool that, if used responsibly, can make a huge difference to the future of mankind, if only for things like exploring the stars and sensible use of diagnostic tools. it's an incredibly powerful tool. So yes, use it for what it should be used for, not for generating, as you say, 2,000 AI kittens. All right. Thank you very much. I think we'll kind of wrap it up there. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have enjoyed this, I'm DC Bradshaw. I stream on both Twitch and YouTube simultaneously. So if you don't follow me on both of them, I'm at DC Bradshaw on both. I would really appreciate that. You know, as a relatively small screamer? Yeah, weird. As a relatively small streamer, expanding my audience is not easy. So I do appreciate. Thank you very much for that. As I said, I have a Kickstarter coming out soon for Little But Fierce. Not a single bit of generative AI anywhere in this. Not in the writing, not in the artwork, not in the editing. So please follow that if you're not already following it. Or if you go, look, I really love what you're doing, but I don't have kids. I'm not going to be playing games with kids. That's fine. Put a social media post up about it. You know, share it with your friends who are parents, friends who are teachers, friends who are librarians, friends who are scout leaders, or whomever it may be. Please spread the awareness. It would really, really make my life a lot better. We're up to 96 followers, 4 more than we hit 100, and that would be absolutely amazing. Main places to follow me on socials, other than Twitch and YouTube. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm at dcbradshaw.com. I'm on Threads. I'm at DC Bradshaw. If you want to chuck me a couple of quid, you absolutely can. I have a coffee down there, coffee.com/DC Bradshaw. It helps pay my subscriptions for the creative stuff I do. That means any profit I make, and I can actually, you know, invest as profit rather than just, you know, paying bills and stuff like that. I also, you know, I don't really talk about this enough, but I probably should. I've got a throne as well. Not a literal throne. That would be awesome. I have a throne website for bits and bobs, mostly books and stuff like that. I am funding getting myself like a gimbal for doing more videoing at conventions and stuff like that, which some really kind folks chucked some money at for my 40th birthday a couple of months ago. So if you ever want to buy me something or chuck me a couple of quid, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Next stream is hopefully tomorrow. It should be tomorrow lunchtime. I do, in the afternoon, have to go up to Leeds. So depending what time my train is, we may not be able to do lunchtime chat tomorrow, but I'll try. I'd really like to. And if we do it, we'll be carrying on playing Escape Simulator. So you get to watch me massively fail in solving a variety of puzzles, which seems to be entertaining for everyone. So please consider that. Right, we are going to raid across. Let's see who is about. I suspect that Tiggy is still streaming. Let's have a look. Yep, Tiggy's still streaming. So we are going to raid across to Tiggy. Please make sure you say hey. Tiggy is an absolute delight. And I will see you all very, very soon. Hopefully tomorrow. Alrighty, take care of yourselves. All right, bye.